Welcome back to another episode of In Focus with Haversine Funding, the podcast where we discuss trends, insights, and strategies that drive success in specialty finance. I'm your host, Nolan Reichert, joined today by my co-host, Jen Merritt.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me. And we have a very special guest. We have Tera Davis, the CEO of CyberOne.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to be here.
Yes, we're really excited to speak with you. For those of you who may not know, Tera is the CEO of CyberOne. She really focuses on national organizations, financial platforms, banks, other lenders to make sure that their cybersecurity is up to par to prevent attacks. Tera, you have a very impressive background. I'm going to read some accolades out here just for our viewers. You've been honored by the CRN in their Women of the Channel list, including the Power 60 Solution Providers in 2022. Mm-hmm. Last year, you received the Women in STEM Leadership Leader of the Year award, and you were also recognized by the Dallas Business Journal in their Women in Technology honors.
Yes, last year was a really good year.
It sounds like it. That is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
You know, and I think it's also really interesting. You have a background in raising capital. You've had a successful exit, private equity sale. Mm-hmm. And, now you're so focused in CyberOne, cybersecurity. It's something that is very important in our industry, in any industry.
Should be, for sure.
And it is a conversation that is like front topic, front of the line, especially in today's world. Mm-hmm. When the economic environment is a little bit uncertain, we see this, cybersecurity attacks rise so much. Yeah. Ransomware. So really excited to have you on. I think our guests will find a lot of the information that you have very informative. Hopefully they have a lot to take away. I know I will. So thank you so much for joining us.
I'm excited.
So kind of passing the stick here, can you tell us a little bit about your journey, what got you into cybersecurity, your background, just kind of inform our audience?
So I actually started off in the industrial controls industry, ironically. So in our world, we talk about products that are called SCADA, which is all of the industrial control products. Mm-hmm. Your valves, your switches, all of these things that are now needing to be secured in the cybersecurity world. So I'm like, my past has come and met with my current self. So I got into the business in 1999 when it was actually called network security. It wasn't even cybersecurity back then. Mm-hmm. Pretty easy for even someone like myself to draw out a network diagram with the square for the firewall and the lightning bolt to the cloud and sky, right? Everybody could draw it back then. Never had a goal of starting a company. I was in sales for my entire career, starting off early on by calling people in the phone book and trying to see if they wanted to get their carpets cleaned. So just have done sales kind of my entire life, even prior to college. Never had a goal of starting a business. Mm-hmm.
And yet you did.
And yeah, I did. So it's an interesting place to be when you start a company. You kind of are involved in every aspect of the business and learn everything you never knew you wanted or needed to learn very quickly by just being hands-on and having to figure it out. Right. So it was a very exciting time. My children were 4 and 7 at the time.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they were little. I stayed home for 8 years in between being in the network security world and starting this cybersecurity company, and I tried to kill myself and pretend like I could still be a stay-at-home mom to my children and have this startup business. It was not the best idea.
Balance is not a thing.
Yeah, it's not. But cybersecurity is really, it has become a passion of mine. I love what I do. I love the people that I work with, and it's something that's changing constantly. Mm-hmm. So I think that just keeps it fresh, right? There's new companies, new technologies, new regulations and things coming out all the time. The hackers don't stop at all. People ask a lot of times about COVID.
Yes.
Hackers don't take a COVID break. Man, they did not do quarantine or anything else. And it's interesting. There's something new that people talk about, hackers as a service. There are literally companies out there that, you're paid a wage, you have benefits, you have vacation time, and your job is to sit there and try to hack into organizations. Mm-hmm. Oh. Great job security for us.
Yeah. So I didn't know that. I've heard about what is that, where it's like the probably shouldn't talk about that, where they like hold people hostage for security reasons to be able to hack.
Yeah. Sure.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Sure.
Wow.
So then you were in sales, started a company,
did a little bit of everything. I did the quotes, I did the marketing invitations, which were really beautiful. They were a Word document turned into a PDF. Figured out how to email those out, get customers. I mean, everything. I did some sales in the beginning.
So that was all networking, or is it?
That was cybersecurity by then.
Okay.
So it was 2012 when we started the business.
Okay.
So it was cybersecurity by then. And honestly, it would be very difficult to just start in it right now because it has changed and grown so much. Yeah. But again, back then, because I kind of stayed involved in it, even though I was a stay-at-home mom for 8 years, I still kept in touch with so many people in the industry. I kind of kept abreast of what was going on. So it wasn't so difficult to make that transition. And man, we grew quickly from 5 people to...
How many people do you have now?
65.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, there were 2 companies. We merged, then we spun back out. So when there were 2 companies that merged, we grew as much as 250, 260 people.
That is a lot.
It's too many.
Yeah.
But now you have 65.
Now we have 65. Yeah. 68, actually. 68.
And so, a lot of our audience, they are lenders that, that's our primary focus. So we have a niche audience. Can you kind of touch on, your experience working with lenders? What's that like? Does it differ from other industries? Is there any specifics, when you're servicing, lenders that are dealing with very private information? There's a lot of money involved as well. So, that's, if I was a hacker, that's someone that you might want to be a target for.
So, yes, we deal with a lot of different industries, and they each have their own set of regulations. Some go across multiple industries, but the lending,
like oil field, healthcare, government,
all of it, technology, manufacturing, finance, all of it. But what I will say is with finance, it's interesting. They're equal parts ahead of the game because they have so many stringent regulations that they have to follow. But they're also sort of behind in some ways because the banking industry has been around for so long. They have all of this old, antiquated equipment, and much of it has homegrown applications and things like that. So for them, it's a very difficult balance of being on the front lines and the cutting edge to making sure that they're able to prevent those attacks, but also trying to figure out how to secure all of that old stuff that's too difficult for them to try to bring into the 2025. Yeah. So it's an interesting mix. So what I see with them, though, is that they get a lot of attacks in ransomware, phishing, business email compromise. That's the biggest thing that we're seeing right now. Okay. The 2. Ransomware and BC.
Yeah. So can you walk me through, like, what do they do? What's their strategy, these hackers, for ransomware? How do they get in? And what are some of the key steps that you try to tell people to prevent it? What's the easiest way to prevent it?
You're going to be very surprised when I tell you that the most common way that a hacker gets inside an organization is through their print server.
Really?
They're on the network. Most of the time, no one's thinking about that. Right. It's left open. There is admin access to it. And once they're on it, nobody's thought to cordon that off onto its own, into its own separate air-gapped network. So if they get there, now they're on, and then they head over to the domain controller. Now they're on with everybody else. So something as simple as that, not in the finance industry, but it's very well known now. When the Target breach happened many years ago through the HVAC,
right? Yeah,
the HVAC system. So again, I'm going to talk about those SCADA devices. It's a lot of the very dumb devices on the network that still have you have access to it. And so if you don't...
And no one thinks about it.
No one thinks about it. And so that once they're on, then it's a matter of... And they are here for the long game, okay? They're not trying to get in for a quick and easy hit, although they would take that, I'm sure. But they have all
sit around and wait, right?
They're getting paid. Seriously, these are people that are getting paid to make this stuff happen. So they have the ability to just sit there and patiently wait and look around until they can find that one opening that they need. And sometimes it's the simplest things. One that I'm seeing a lot of people, and this is not the lending world in general, but you see it hit people from a financial perspective. Personally, one I've seen just twice in the last week. I know 2 people whose debit cards, one of them was a Venmo account and one of them, their debit card got hacked. And it's because they get a text.
About that, Nolan.
They get a text and it looks legit, so they click on it. Please don't do that. Your financial institution is never going to text you to confirm something via a link. They are going to call you, just like the Social Security Administration.
So your phone is not as protected as...
Your phone is not your friend.
She's...
I'm looking at you like, what are you saying right now? Your phone is not your friend.
I was under the conception that your phone is hack proof.
No.
I said, I got an Apple. They have up-to-date software.
Look at her face.
I can go to any website, any link.
I'm trying so hard right now to be calm with you.
You would have a heart attack.
I would have a heart attack.
There's been times I have received emails, and I said, well, let me open it up on my phone just in case it's
stop.
It's bad.
She's saying stop.
It does not matter if you open it up on your phone. If it's bad, it's still bad. And now they've come into your phone, and they can. So this woman whose Venmo account was hacked, I was sitting at lunch with her. She was late to lunch, and she's like, "Oh my God, my Venmo got hacked." We're getting off on a tangent here, but it's all related because everybody needs to do the same thing. So she had clicked on something. I said, "Okay, so I'm trying to go to my Venmo to navigate her on where to go to close out the account." Right. She couldn't get there because a thing popped up saying, access denied, access denied.
Wow.
She called Venmo. Those people had already tried to open up a Venmo debit card in her. And I mean, so she did all the right things. She was on the phone immediately, right? The first thing that you do want to do is notify someone. In most instances, a financial institution is going to contact the FBI. Unfortunately, most of the time the FBI is contacting you because they have figured out that somebody's doing something nefarious before you figure it out.
Wow. So
sometimes too, remember this, it's important to understand your vendors. So if I'm a lender, there are other institutions that I'm dealing with. It's very important to understand what their level of security is and protect yourself from that as well. And there are different products and security controls that you can put in place to do that, because if they get popped, it might be to get into you.
To you, yeah.
You know,
that's like our accounting systems, our software systems for managing loans. I cannot talk today.
Yeah, absolutely. Another very famous breach, a company called RSA Security many years ago. They were hacked. Their kind of bread and butter flagship product was Secure ID. It's a little token. It's for two-factor authentication. A lot of people know what that is. They hacked into that system. Well, they were actually trying to hack into Lockheed Martin, who ran that multi-factor authentication system. So they're like, if we can figure out how to hack into them, then we can figure out how to get into them. So it's not always about you. It can be about the different vendors that you're using as well. So again, focusing on how to protect your network as much as you can and letting in as little as you have to is a big thing, I would say.
Wow. I think we always hear about, for lenders, factors, banks, it's the email, the phishing, things like that as being number one. We talked to somebody recently, and I don't know if it happened in the last year. I'm guessing a lot of this happened in the last year. They had clicked on something, and then they had 7,000 emails come through, and they spent 17 hours trying to go through the emails and figuring it out. And it's really the last one before the 7,000 came in. Is that a common thing? Is that what's?
It is, because they're trying to flood the systems so that you get
7,000 emails. Yeah,
sure. You get distracted, and so now they're in, and they can do something else while you're distracted with all of this other stuff. It gives them time to get something done. And yes, email and phishing is a big one. There's phishing. Smishing, I think, is the one they call for SMS, the texting.
That thing on your phone.
Exactly. Today, I was sitting in a meeting, and my director of marketing was sitting next to me, and he showed me a text that he got, and it said, "Chase, it's Tara. Are you available?" And well, that's not me.
Yeah.
I mean, they try to do that. They try to do that by email. There's another. AI is, in my humblest of opinion, very, very amazing technology, but very, very dangerous.
What are you seeing in that? I was going to ask about ransomware and things like that, but since you're on that, I mean, because there's the story you heard about the CFO that told somebody on a video and it wasn't him.
It wasn't him. It was AI.
Verbal check on the wire, so they found out. I forget how much money, but it was a lot.
Millions of dollars. Yes, millions of dollars. So what I think is that for researching things, for saying there's 7 pages of information that I need to read, and I can pop that into ChatGPT, for example, and say, condense that for me. Or machine learning, that's going to make everything faster.
Right.
That's great. But if you want to implement AI inside your organization and allow your users to have access to it, the average user is not smart enough to do that. And once you put the information out there, it's out there, because that's the beauty of AI. Right. It learns from everything that's been put into it. There's another famous example of somebody who, a little chatbot for a car company. The little chatbot, they're talking about buying a car. That person ended up buying a car for $1 because they were able to trick the chatbot into agreeing to this whole contract that they did.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of
bad.
There's all sorts of bad things that can happen with the use of AI. So I think it's something. It's inevitable. It's out there. We're not going to stop using it, right? And it's advancing technology, but it's just something to be very, very mindful of, and making sure you have it in a controlled environment.
Right.
Imagine,
like
imagine
or
how
whatever.
it's learning from itself. If some bad actor sticks something negative in there, now you've got bad information that's generating at a rapid rate.
It's because it's not confidential by nature, and it feels like when you're talking to it, it feels like it's just like you and this chatbot.
Ava. We call it Ava.
Yeah. And it is,
It's not.
it's just a conversation between us. I can put anything in there, and it just stays between me and the,
just like your phone. Yeah. It's not.
Yeah, this podcast is just
She's going to send you a list of rules to live by.
So what are some of the things that lenders or people even like myself, like what are practical steps that we can start taking to bolster our security?
There are a couple of very simple things that I think every organization should be doing, and it's shocking how many aren't. But, teaching your users about phishing, there's a ton of training modules out there that you can implement and have your users go through those, and then they click on something that's like, shouldn't have done that, and
they have that, and then they you have to go back
get
to
a little
recovery
nasty
school
yeah. So there are a lot of those, and it seems so simple, but when you see how many people still click on it, you realize, okay, we're not where we think we are. People aren't paying attention. You get busy doing your job, and you're just like click, 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 and you just aren't thinking about it. And the other thing is multi-factor authentication. I know it's a pain in the butt, and I know people don't like it. My Marriott account, just to log into my Marriott account, which has
I have the same,
nothing major in it, it's going to send me a text to confirm that it's me, or an email with a code, a Google Authenticator app, or any of those. I mean, it's really important, and it's not that difficult to have multi-factor on. It's a pain. I have an admin now. First time ever I've had an admin for like 2 months. It's changed my life. She has access to those accounts, so she can book travel for me. And so she'll say, I'm getting ready to do Marriott. So, or do you have your phone handy so I can, send her the code? I realize that doesn't sound secure, but it's just my Marriott account. I wouldn't recommend doing that with like your domain controller or anything like that. But those are two simple things that educate your users and use multi-factor authentication anywhere you can.
I have a question. So, speaking of the two-factor authentication, I do have that on most of my apps. When I get a text that says, I'm trying to think of one I received the other day.
I know. I'm terrified.
Your shop app authentication or whatever code. Yeah. Is that someone trying to
if you're not in the midst of making a purchase and that comes up, I would definitely delete that and move on.
Yes. Well, that's what.
But you're not supposed to reply to those either.
Oh, right? I don't. But it comes from the real, it's from.
Oftentimes, if you really look closely, it's not. And one thing that you can do, if you get a text that has a link in it, if you don't click on it, but if you hold down on that link, it'll pop up what the link is actually to, and it's very clear to tell, this is not legit.
Right.
So sometimes you can do that. Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Or on your computer, you can hover over a link.
Yes.
And you can tell pretty quickly that way.
One thing, Jeff Whaley, our CFO, it's funny, he received a DocuSign today, which he was expecting. And he had mentioned, I hate receiving these DocuSigns because that's like the
number. I just delete them until someone says, Jenny didn't sign it. And I'm like, well, unless you tell me it's coming.
Right.
My contracts guy, that's exactly what he does. Right. He tells the salespeople, he's like, don't have a vendor just send something over via DocuSign because I'm not opening it.
Yeah.
What I learned today is at the bottom of that email, there's a security code that you can copy and go to the real DocuSign website.
And just type in the code.
Put in that code, and it will pull up your document that way. Because now I'm scarred from touching DocuSign emails as well.
But your phone you still think is safe. Okay.
Well, not after today. Not after today. It just took bringing you on for it all to click.
Saving the world.
Yes.
One Nolan at a time.
So getting back onto but this is really important real life stuff. It's a lot of it is, yes, it's so important what's going on at the institutional level, but it's the day-to-day users that they target. It's little stuff like thinking, oh, I'm receiving a package.
That's right. Oh, and that's a big one now.
I get that one all the time. And I say, I know if I'm getting a package. I've tracked that.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, we've had small, mid-size, and even larger finance companies that have been ransomwared in the last year, and some have not paid and rebuilt. And it's not maybe just the finance company; it could be their clients, and so the end customers,
again,
manufacturers, distributors.
Yes,
and some have paid it, and they don't talk about it, right? But that's going to happen. And is there a right, wrong, or does it just depend? Like, I guess it depends if you have the infrastructure to be able to rebuild it, or how much the ask is, or
what I would say. And actually, I just had someone reach out to me personally because they got hit with ransomware, and so then they called us and talked about, well, what do we do now? But what they had going for them, and what I would recommend highly, is have all of your critical infrastructure backed up. Right? It's an expense, right? Sometimes that gets cut, but have it all backed up. So they had their files backed up to the point where they kind of could say, no, we're not paying that. Also, you run a very high risk of paying it and not getting what they say you're going to get anyway. So I don't usually recommend paying it. The other thing that we talked about, and this pertains to you as well, is they said, well, should we notify our customers ahead of time or wait until they come to us? And I said, you absolutely should notify them, because then you're controlling the narrative.
Right.
If they come to you, now you're, defensively having to answer for it. So if you do get hit with something like that, I don't necessarily recommend paying it. Try to have your systems as backed up as you can, so that you can just revert back to the last known good that you have. Then you're not as worried about getting hit with that ransomware attack. And then the last thing I would say is, again, get ahead of that narrative and let your clientele, your customers, your vendors, whomever it might be, let them know what happened, so that you're controlling the narrative of what they find out.
Yeah. You've been doing this for long enough to kind of get an idea of trends, like new strategies, new things that these hackers are doing. What have you seen just recently that you're seeing an increased activity, or whether it's a new way, or besides the Internet of Things that you would discuss? Is there anything else, like new strategies?
Really, the one that they're hitting on the most right now is that business email compromise. We actually did an internal test that I didn't know about. And I mean, I probably had 10 people within 15 minutes either texting me or emailing me or calling me and like, did you just send an email asking me to do, whatever this was? And I was like, no, I did not, because it was like, click here, go download this, secret file or whatever. Like, no, I didn't do that. But the person internally who was setting that up as a test, man, I didn't think it looked kind of weird. But I mean, he did such a great job.
It wasn't totally fake.
Wasn't exactly. It's like
he spent some time. It's not like
he spent some time. It was not a 15-year-old in a basement.
Yeah, we have the one that you pay for, and you can pick the scam or whatever you want to test everyone. But a lot of them are like the Zoom or DocuSign, and I'm like, I'm not going to send those because everyone knows what those are.
Right. This was just an email from me saying, hey, can you sign into this secure place to access this document or whatever? And it was enough people, like, smart people that were like, is this really you? I'm like, it is not me. But kudos to them for asking before they did anything with it. So, but yeah, business email compromise, just trying to get an email sent where somebody clicks on a link and now they've got some money from you somehow. That's the most popular thing we're seeing.
So, we discussed the two-factor authentication. Obviously, if you know the person that you're supposed to be, or that you supposedly received the email from, getting confirmation that it's secured.
Verbally or whatever.
Yes. Is there
nothing bad is going to come from confirming that it is who you think it is, right? And if they are worth their salt, they won't mind you calling to confirm either. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any other steps that people can implement, or
strong passwords?
Okay.
You should have a password vault of some sort so that it's generating random strong passwords for you.
Yes,
the number of times
implemented that.
I was very resistant to it, but I talk to people all the time. They're like, "Oh, I have a system. It's this number. It's my daughter's birthday followed by my third pet followed." I'm like, "Oh my God, what are you talking about right now? Please don't do that." Right? I probably have 1,000 passwords. I've got vendor portals to log into. I've got travel sites. I've got all of these things. There's no way I could come up with some sort of system where I'm remembering it.
You don't want to do the same one on every single thing?
No, you do not want to do the same one. I don't even recommend doing like a version of the same one, .1, .2, .3. No. So
how secure the password vaults themselves?
They get hacked. They definitely get hacked. Nothing is 100%, right?
Right.
Abstaining from the internet is the only way to keep yourself from being hacked, right?
Yeah.
I had somebody once say, concrete in Texas is either cracked or it's going to be cracked. It's the same thing, right? It's like something's gonna happen eventually because they're ahead of us. Again, I'm going to reiterate, this is their job.
Right.
This is what they're studying. This is what they're coming up with. This is what they do. These organizational hackers, even in nation states. I mean, that's what they're doing. So they're always going to be ahead of us. And then the other problem is this is changing a little bit, and really in the finance industry, quite a bit. Having the change to where a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer, or a Chief Information Officer of a company, especially a larger company, be on the hook for something like that, that has changed the way people are budgeting for their cybersecurity projects, right? Because now it's not like, well, we didn't have the money for that. Well, if I'm the CISO, I'm going to keep a trail that says, well, I told you we needed this, you said no, and now this happened. And so that's changing a little bit, but I think the hacker industry, I'm just going to call it, is always going to be ahead of where we are. All you can do is the best you can.
Right.
Educate your users, strong passwords, multi-factor authentication. I mean, those are some top three things.
Educate your employees.
Yeah.
Educate your employees.
Right. Yeah, employee training is so important.
How often do y'all would you recommend doing the test? Is like some people say they do it once a quarter, some do it once a month. You could do it every day. We're not doing it every day.
You kind of can track it, right? In the beginning, if you're just rolling out something like that, I think you do it more often. You might do it once a week initially. And so then what you start to see is different trends
like the same person always clicking. Yeah.
Right. So then you're going to have this pool of people that you're like, okay, you need it more often because you're not learning from this. And then this other group of people that, yes, once a quarter is probably enough.
Gotcha. So when a company brings you in, whether it's a lender or non-lender, what is sort of the actual, the action steps that you begin to take to determine how secure the organization is? What's needed, so to say.
Two different things.
Yes.
One will come in and we'll do a risk assessment and or a tools assessment. So it's important for us to understand, and in your industry, the risk tolerance is very low. You do not have a high tolerance for risk. So we have to understand the risk tolerance of the organization first, then come in and see, well, what do you already have? Sometimes you just need to change a configuration of something. You don't need to even buy anything. So it's like configuration changes, maybe there's a tool that you have that you don't have implemented, or it's not doing what you need it to do. Let's take that out and use those funds to buy something else. So that's kind of one set of what we do. Another thing that's important, and a lot of regulations require this, so I'm not sure specifically with the lending industry, but having a regular pen test. So oftentimes with a new client, we might start off by doing a penetration test, which is an ethical hacking. You're paying us to see how far we can get into your systems.
Wow.
And then based on that, now you have a list of things like, oh, well, we need to close this gap and we need to close this gap. So penetration test, risk assessment, tools assessment, those are kind of the top three things that we would go into an organization and talk about first.
So what if, in the alternative finance space, non-banks, private lending, some of these lenders are smaller. If they have like 10 employees or 20 employees, what would be different for them? Because they're not going to spend, a ton of money to do these things, and they might have an outsourced
IT.
IT group, but sometimes those even need someone to come in and check. I mean, y'all, what do you recommend for those smaller
We don't
groups?
do that, but I actually have 2 or 3 that I recommend regularly that is their focus. Small law firms, small dental offices, small lending companies, because you're right. They have 5 or 10 employees. They don't have a multi-million-dollar IT budget.
Right.
So someone who manages your internet coming in is not often who I would recommend to manage the security of everything that you have connected to that.
That's good to know.
I would have those separate, right? Someone who's the break fix for your laptops and your PCs, oftentimes not the same person I would have for
they often
the security.
Overlap that and
do.
include that, but then I know we had
but it's not their focus.
Right.
There are companies
That's
who
why we would switch
focus on just doing the security. Now, it's oftentimes managed because you don't have the manpower for it, but they focus on just doing the security aspect for smaller organizations.
Right.
So
that makes sense, because we've seen issues with people in the past, and then have had to call you or others like you to say, hey, can you look and make sure all our stuff's right? Yeah.
Do you know someone that you can call?
I do know someone that I can call, Tara. I wonder who that is.
How important is insurance for cyber attacks?
Excellent question. So when we started this company in 2012, cyber insurance was something that was kind of just starting, and people didn't understand it. We would have customers come to us and say, we need you to hold cyber insurance for us. And I'm like, that is not how it works. That's like telling me that I need to have your car insurance. So it was this first educational round for everybody, the insurance companies and the users, on what does this mean? What's the right amount for us to have? And then you had all of these gigantic issues and have to pay out these claims, right? And now the cyber insurance industry has changed dramatically. There are a few different things. One, they'll put together this list that you have to have these certain security checks in place to even renew your policy.
Okay.
You can do additional things to reduce the amount of your premiums. Certain regulatory agencies will have, specific things that you have to check the boxes of before you can have your cyber insurance renewed. So it's kind of become like homeowners insurance. They're going to come out, they're going to assess your
risk,
your environment. Right. And so if you have a home in Louisiana or Florida, or somebody's getting hit with hurricanes, good luck.
Right.
If you're a company that's been, hacked a million times and you can't show that you've got any of these security controls in place, probably not going to get good cyber insurance. So it's changed a lot, but that's what I see, is that it's actually been good for us, because if we have a product that we're selling or a service that we're offering and it can help you check one of those boxes, now you all of a sudden have budget for that, because it's helping you get cyber insurance and reduce your premiums. Right. It's a win-win in that regard.
Yeah. I it's been so great to talk to you, because there's like a stigma behind if you have been hacked or attacked. It's like a little bit of shame, but it happens. It's part of learning. And it's hard to get this information from someone that's experienced it, because they're reserved about what happened. They're not so open. So it's so great to have someone like you that sees it and lives it every day, and your whole job is based off preventing it. It's so important for institutions, lenders, our audience, myself. You're
gonna have to call her more often.
Yeah, I didn't think I would take as much away from this conversation as I have, which is concerning.
Yeah, I think someone else is gonna call you after
this. Thankfully, I have taken a lot of the steps that you mentioned to prevent, especially with it being so well known and talked about.
Right.
What are some of, if you could narrow it down to 3 actionable items, it doesn't have to be 3, it can be 5.
Know, right.
But what are the key easy steps that if you wanted our audience to walk away with something,
she
this
told
would
you
be
one. Your phone is not your friend.
Your phone is not your friend. Yes. I'm going to say the multi-factor, because that's on personal as well as professional. Almost every, even Gmail. Yes, you can set up 2-factor authentication on your Gmail. Amazon has a passphrase or a text or a code or whatever. Netflix, all of these things. Do it in every aspect of your life, your personal and your professional.
And I'm like, okay.
I know. So that's one.
Passwords.
Passwords. Please do not make your passwords if you can come up with it on your own and remember it across multiple devices and logins, that's not a good password.
I feel like she's looking at me when she says that.
It's not a good password. Your cat's name followed by your dog's name. I mean, none of those are good. The street you grew up on, none of that's good. So that's 2, strong passwords. And then the other thing I would say is just don't be afraid to ask questions and educate yourself. Back to your point, it's like this kind of stigma around it. It's okay to ask questions. Everyone in our industry would so much rather you ask a couple of questions and get the right answers than do something.
I feel like you were going to say, be curious before.
Be curious. Yeah, exactly. Be curious.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's what I'd say.
That is, I mean,
I could sit here forever.
I know. I know.
Like, oh, okay.
So for our viewers that do want to know more, are interested, where can they find you?
Well, that's very kind of you to ask. CyberOneSecurity.com. Tera Davis on LinkedIn. I get plenty of questions on LinkedIn. No, but our website has a lot of information available for people to see, and we're always happy to help.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well,
we really appreciate you coming in.
Yes.
Thank
you so much.
Great. Yeah,
it is. The pleasure's been all ours. So
thank you.
It's been a great conversation filled with so much information that I'm going to walk away here and change quite a few passwords.
Good. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Multi-factor. Answer a call when someone calls you.
Right. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks,
Jen. Thank you for joining me again. And to all of our viewers and listeners, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of In Focus with Haversine Funding. Remember to stay informed, stay inspired, and stay on course to growing your financial platform. Until next time.